Okay, so welcome back to my feature film series. So this is the first feature film that I've got to be the director of photography on in my career, and I'm super excited to share it with you. In this video, we're actually going to be breaking down one of the very first scenes that we got to shoot in it, and it's one of my favorite scenes from a look perspective. If you want to get full context on the film, please go watch my first video, which is an overview of what the project is about, and some context to how we're shooting on an LED wall using sets inside of a studio. But what's really great about the scene that we're going to talk about here is that it is inside this bunker that is a set, and we are using some of the LED wall in the background, but for this one we actually got to shape the light more rather than just having the fake sky be our overhead lighting, and that's really all we can do in some of the scenarios on this film. But for this one we actually got to create shape, have some nice compositions. So I'm going to show you my approach to that from a cinematography standpoint. We are shooting on the Red Komodo, the original one, in 6K, medium quality, with the speed booster and the Dulens APO primes. We are on a 43mm here. Not far off from close focus. We are using diopters when we have to get in any closer than this. The Dulens APO primes kind of have a close focus issue, but not the case for general close-ups like this. We're also shooting in this 2:3:9 aspect ratio, which gives us room to crop and move the image and just really helps add to the cinematic vibe of the film and creating a little bit of claustrophobia in this kind of horror mood war film. So here's the first shot here. This is our protagonist. Really the ideal conditions for lighting a face. What was interesting about shooting in this bunker that we're in here is that it eats up all of the light. So generally speaking, we don't want white walls because that'll bounce light all over the place. But also, in the flip side of that, if we have everything too dark, it's hard to get light in here. Now, when shooting narrative or shooting something like a commercial or, a music video, you want it to, I want it to look as natural as possible. So I'm trying to motivate all the light from this side coming from these rainy, cloudy, foggy skies that we have outside. Now, in reality, we do not have rainy, cloudy skies. This is actually the LED wall right there. That's an Unreal Engine image right there. And then we have the trench set here and then a bunker right here. We have this little light here in the background as kind of a little accent lantern. And I'm basically trying to expose everything as if this light is just softly wrapping inside the bunker. But if you've ever tried to do something in a dark space like this, with this kind of walls that eat up all of the light, it's almost impossible to get extra lighting in here just with like a bounce. It's really hard to expose from the inside and the outside. If you watched my last video, you heard my approach, and it's always, what would Roger Deakins do? Now, Roger Deakins, great cinematographer, he likes to really wrap the light using bounce or cove lighting, and I kind of pulled one out of his playbook for this. I pushed a light through a half grid here. I think this also had a shower curtain on top of it, so it's basically double diffuse. And what's nice about the shower curtain is it gives a kind of frosted look to it, which really helped with selling that this was coming from a rainy, cloudy sky. And I was pushing one of my larger lights through that, I believe, but that still was not enough wrap. So we've got a 8x piece of diffusion here, essentially pushing light through, but to wrap it all the way around his face like this, we needed a little bit more of that cove lighting like Roger Deakins would do. If we go back to the behind the scenes, you can see I've added in this little, 3x2 piece of foam board or whatever, and I put a Nanlite Pavo tube set to probably 6,000 Kelvin or something close to that, just bouncing off the edge, just creating a little bit more of a wrap around his face. Now, I didn't want there to be a strong backlight coming from this side since I wanted it to be cloudy and soft. So my first thought was to put a light here and shine it into a bounce here to get some return this direction. But I decided against that and decided just to put that tube light there. The only thing you have to worry about with the tube light is having a little bit of a catch light here in the eye, So we've got the 8x coming through here, but not having it in the background. And then we've got a Nanlite tube here, and then the little bounce to basically wrap that light all the way around his face. Now, on top of that, we don't really need to add any negative fill here because the bunker is just soaking up all the light. And that's because we're trying to keep this exposure up here in the sky at a minimum on the histogram while still exposing his face here. Now on the false color, I'm trying to put this part of the skin just below what is here, just to justify that there is some fall off coming in here. Sometimes when I'm shooting with a cloudy environment, especially if I'm outside of something like a bunker like this, I'll try to map the sky pretty even closer to the skin to sell the kind of daylight look. So it's actually the second shot of the day, but this shot is just really so nice to me. I really like it. I think we're also shooting at a T28 here to make sure we have some texture in his face, keeping him in focus, and you can still tell that the background looks great, but you can also tell that there's a lantern here and it's not so out of focus you don't even know what it is. And then we're using a LUT here that is somewhere between a 2383 film emulation but with a bleach bypass on top of it, and I'm probably at like a 4000 Kelvin on the white balance to help cool it off a little bit and really sell that rainy vibe that's coming from outside the window. And what's just so cool about this is like this is entirely done in a studio environment with no actual sky, but I think it totally sells out of context, and I'm really proud of that. So the reverse on this angle is actually the first shot of a day, the first shot we did in the entire feature film. And this one isn't super unlike the one before, but we were able to have a little bit more power to manipulate this frame. First off, we've got this radio in the background, which is cool. It has this little light bulb on top. So I have this light bulb on a dimmer, and I have it dimmed down to where it's not clipping, and you can kind of see the little filaments on it, which I thought was pretty fun. But sort of the same thing, right? We're trying to get a quayside coming in from the outside the bunker from the rain, and then we have the bunker creating the nice shape here. Now all I'm doing here is trying to get a little bit of a glow on his neck as if this light is actually doing something. But in our current exposure, I have it exposed pretty far down to save these highlights here. So this little edge light, this little backlight is actually coming from a little small rig light, a little tiny pocket credit card size lamp or light over here that I have armed up on the top of the shelf, and it is just splashing down on him a little bit to separate him from the background. But on his quayside, what we have is actually I brought in that 8x half grid and shower curtain all the way up, and I covered the entire bunker side of the bunker. Basically the door side of the bunker is 100% covered up with that now. And I was able to shoot my 500 watt light, I believe, the 500 watt NAN light, to diffuse the entire area, really get a nice wrap. And he's basically looking right out the door there. So that really helped. Still though, wanted to have a little bit of extra wrap because he's turning his head back and forth and whatnot. And that way the light didn't just totally cast on one direction. I wanted to get a little bit more wrap down below here. So I put that same bounce from the previous shot kind of on the front of him on the ground, just as if there's like a little bit of return coming from up here to kind of soften the rest of his face. Really like this shot, turned out really nice. We are over the shoulder, you can see. Now the idea was to keep it grounded in reality the best we could, even though we had full control. We had the power of, the universe here. We could open up any of these walls and shoot through them. So by staying on the 43, but still I believe we did open up the wall behind him to get behind our main actor here to create this over the shoulder look. We're still really tight on him. So I think it grounds us in reality still, and you can still tell that we're not, I don't think the audience will think that we opened a wall to get back here. Now, in a lot of later scenes, we really did have to open the wall to get wide enough. But what's really nice about sets like that is that you can put the camera basically touching where the wall would be, and it still sells that you might be in here. If you had something like a Venice with a Rialto, maybe you could put a lens and a camera right up against the wall. But with our setup, it's probably 10 inches long. It just made sense to open up these walls and have full control of our environment, put lights wherever we want, etc. And then what the tricky part is when you do get a nice quayside here and a nice down shadow side, But then you need to flip around and shoot from outside the bunker, shoot from the key side of things. That can become really challenging in a lot of scenarios. But when we switch to this angle where he's talking to another person outside the bunker here, I knew that I could get away with front lighting it because the bunker was so dark, right? So in this scenario, we don't have to worry about the lighting as much because we do front light him. He's got this nice catch light in his eyes coming from the sky, but we have so much shape still because the background is so dark. So he's contrasting off this background, and so really we have a ton of shape. He still has, like, you know, his little 5 o'clock shadow here, which is giving him some shape and dark features, and then we're on this dark background. And then to go along with that, we still have this light bulb over here that's doing a little something. It's also creating interest and separation on this side of the frame and justifies some of that light coming from earlier. Keep telling us that there is a light here because we'll probably use this later in the scene. So this is one of those scenarios where you think this could be the worst case, but really this frame looks really nice because you still have a nice contrast going on between light and dark. That's kind of the challenge part of narrative, is when they switch eye lines and then they create a new, so, you know, we have a line here with the protagonist over here, but then we also have a line here with another character over here, and you have to be able to switch on the fly and keep your lighting. The rest of the scene gets pretty simple. Didn't really have to do anything for this. It's coming from the POV of the major there, and it's really the same thing. We just have a really nice soft glow coming from outside the bunker, shooting through that diffusion. Just got a little closer. We might actually be on a diopter here. I don't think we are though. And then for this reverse here, same thing. Just move that big piece of diffusion that was over here, and we just moved it on the other side to create that wrap over here, but not show it in the background. Still have a little light coming from the top here that I'm pushing down on here just to add a little bit more glow and keep the continuity from that light overall. Okay, so that's a quick one, just breaking down one of my first scenes that I shot on the feature. I'll probably break down a couple more scenes here in the future, so subscribe if you want to see those and see some more videos like that. If you do like those videos, please let me know in the comments if you do. And of course, all the lighting was done with the Nanlite lights. We've got our 500 to 720. We also are shooting with one of their new 2x2 light mats. And then of course the tube lights. The tube lights will be used so much on this feature. Okay, so that's it for this breakdown, but before we go, I want to thank the sponsor of this video, which is Squarespace. Squarespace is an all-in-one platform to present your work online. Start a completely personalized website with the new guided design system, Squarespace Blueprint. Choose from professionally curated layout and styling options to build a unique online presence from the ground up. Maybe you want to start an online store to sell your photography or other products. Squarespace has the built-in functionality to get one of those up and running quickly, and I've actually been using Squarespace to run my online stores for almost a decade now. Make checkout seamless for your customers with simple but powerful payment tools, accept credit cards, PayPal, and Apple Pay, and in eligible countries offer customers the option to buy now and pay later with Afterpay and ClearPay. And of course, if you're like me, you're probably looking to build a portfolio, which Squarespace has tons of features for that very thing. You can even create private galleries for client work using these tools. So if you're looking for a home for your work, you can do that with Squarespace. Click the link in the description to get 10% off, and I want to thank Squarespace for sponsoring this video.